There is a quiet miracle happening all around you. Billions of voices speaking at once, yet almost no one truly speaking. Billions of lives moving, choosing, striving, yet remarkably few movements that have never occurred before. From the outside, it looks like freedom. From the inside, it feels like identity. But beneath the names, the stories, the preferences, and the struggles, something far more ancient is at work, an inherited momentum quietly occupying center frame. What you call me may not be who you think it is. The material mind is astonishingly convincing. It learns your language, borrows your memories, adopts your values, and then steps forward wearing your face. It tells you that you are unique while guiding you along paths worn smooth by centuries of repetition. It offers comfort, belonging, and certainty, so long as it remains in control. And yet every once in a while something interrupts the pattern, a stillness, a clarity, a moment where action arises without rehearsal, a movement that does not echo the past. In those moments, something radically different appears, not a better version of the collective, not a refined personality, but a presence untouched by inheritance, not constructed, not remembered, not borrowed. This is not a journey of self-improvement. It is a revelation of misplacement, a return of the material mind to its rightful role, and the emergence of something unmistakably alive, unrepeatable, and new. This is a walk into the illusion of individuality and the quiet unveiling of what stands beyond it. Why you're not an individual, the tyrant in your head. I'm Patrick Carradine, and this is Unified Theistic Naturalism. Abstract. The modern world assures you that you are an individual. Your name, your choices, your career, your freedoms all seem to confirm it. Yet what passes for individuality is most often the material mind hijacking center frame, repeating expired steps, camouflaging itself within the collective where nothing feels out of place. In this state, you are not an individual but a reflection of what has already been lived. True individuality is rare. It does not appear at birth, nor through status, nor through effort. It emerges only when nothing occupies center frame until presence calls, and the material mind is restored to its rightful place as tool. Only then does the present self, the image of the divine, stand in communion, indivisible, whole, resonant. In that cadence every movement is perfect action, brand new, untethered, unmistakably yours. This paper reveals the difference between collective repetition and genuine individuality. You are either an echo shaped by the collective or a voice in cadence with the divine. There is no in-between. The tyrant revealed the material mind was given as a gift, but when it hijacks center frame, it becomes tyrant. It seizes the place that belongs only to presence, filling it with recycled thought, borrowed steps, and conditioned reflex. As tyrant, it protects itself by hiding in plain view. It convinces the captive that suffering and attachment are natural, that life is nothing more than expectations and disappointments. But suffering itself is not real. The tyrant does not shout, it predicts. It narrates, it compares, it warns. It rehearses. It speaks in urgency and certainty, convincing the body to react before presence arrives. And because it speaks first, it is believed. This voice is not personal. It is inherited. Culture, family, trauma, language, reward, punishment, these shape a shared script. Most lives run this script with minor variations, mistaking repetition for choice. What UTN calls the tyrant is simply pattern in control. Why this feels like you, neuroscience confirms that the brain is a predictive organ. It does not primarily perceive reality. It anticipates it. Incoming information is filtered through memory and expectation to reduce uncertainty and conserve energy. Psychology shows that identity forms through repetition. What is thought often enough becomes believed. What is believed long enough becomes self. Physiology reveals the cost. When prediction governs perception, the nervous system remains in low-grade threat. Stress hormones circulate, muscles tense, breathing shallows. The body prepares for danger that rarely exists. This is not pathology. It is design without presence. The illusion of suffering. A check engine light suffering is never a state of being. It is only a signal. Like the check engine light in a car, suffering does not mean life has broken. It only alerts you. Something is misaligned. When the material mind hijacks center frame, attachments and expectations appear. When those attachments are disappointed, The signal of suffering flashes. The signal is not the problem, the attachment is. Suffering reveals that you wanted reality to unfold differently than it did. But once seen for what it is, the signal loses its grip. In communion, suffering vanishes because there is nothing to resist. Presence does not imagine outcomes. It abides. When the mind is summoned only as tool, the light goes out and life runs as designed, whole, harmonious, free. The collective masquerading as the individual. If the tyrant is running, what appears is not individuality, but echo. Trends repeat. Conflicts mirror each other. Arguments recycle across generations. UTN observes a simple truth. The collective produces echoes. Presence produces individuals. True individuality is not self-expression. It is undistorted action arising from communion. When center frame returns to presence, the mind falls silent unless summoned. Pattern loses authority. The body settles. Action becomes precise, timely, and unrepeatable. This is individuality, not as identity, but as perfect action. Science is confirmation. Not authority. Science does not explain communion. It reveals what happens when communion is absent. Predictive processing explains why thought precedes awareness. Polyvagal theory explains why presence restores safety and coherence. Heart rate variability studies show how regulation returns when attention stabilizes. Trauma research confirms that unobserved pattern repeats across generations. None of this contradicts UTN, it mirrors it. Presence does not heal by effort. It heals by removal of interference. The tool, when the material mind is not permitted to hijack center frame, it becomes tool. As tool, it waits in silence until presence calls it forth. It can be summoned to calculate, to recall, to imagine, to create, but never to lead. As tool, it supports without ruling, explores without usurping, amplifies without distorting. It remains an instrument of communion, never its substitute. Psychological, emotional, and health implications. When the tyrant leaves center frame, rumination decreases. Emotional regulation improves. Anxiety loops collapse, relationships soften. Chronic stress markers reduce. These are not goals of communion. They are side effects. Health improves not because something is added, but because something unnecessary stops running. The individual is not defined by birth, biology, or legal identity. An individual exists only when the present self, the image of the divine, abides in communion, and nothing occupies center frame until presence calls. The individual is whole, never fractured by inner division. In communion, resonant with the unwavering cadence of the divine. Creative, every act perfect action, brand new, never borrowed, never conditioned. Consistent, hindsight, present moment, and foresight all reveal wholeness. Free, not from suffering sometimes, but from the very illusion that suffering exists at all. The individual is the only creation capable of reflecting back to the divine. All other life unfolds in instinct. The humankind alone communes. The collective where individuality ends, the collective begins. The collective is safe, familiar, unthreatening. Its rhythm is repetition, its comfort is camouflage. It promises belonging, but only at the cost of individuality. In the collective, creativity collapses into imitation. Presence is drowned out by conditioning. Consciousness is reduced to reflex. Suffering appears as constant attachment and expectation, but never recognized as illusion. The 5 gold coins of the captive, suffering, death, identity, chaos, and love as lack are shuffled endlessly, never dissolved. The collective does not produce individuals. It produces echoes, reflections. Are you an individual? The measure of individuality is not external achievement, but communion. To test whether you stand as an individual or have dissolved into the collective, reflect on these questions. 1. When a decision arises, do you move in perfect action or repeat expired steps because they feel safe? 2. Does your material mind slip into center frame on its own, or do you summon it as a tool only when presence calls? 3. When outcomes unfold differently than imagined, do you remain whole or suffer because you are attached to how it should have been? 4. Is your daily life filled with echoes, borrowed phrases, inherited routines, conditioned reactions, or do you hear your own voice in cadence with the divine? 5. Are you living in resonant flow or merely surviving in the camouflage of the collective where nothing feels out of place, but nothing is ever new? Your answers reveal everything. An echo cannot claim individuality. Only in communion does the voice emerge, whole, free, indivisible. Conclusion: when the individual emerges, the choice is simple but decisive: tyrant or tool, echo or voice, collective or individual. The material mind has persuaded the world that captivity is individuality. But Yu Tian unmasks this persuasion. The individual is not divided, not fractured, not repeating. The individual abides in communion, lives in cadence, and acts in resonance with the divine. In this place there is no suffering, because suffering was never real, only the shadow of attachment. There is only perfect action. This is freedom. This is the new thing. This is individuality. You were never meant to manufacture an individual. You were meant to be revealed as one. What stood in the way was not failure, weakness, or lack of effort. It was the material mind occupying center frame, repeating inherited patterns while calling them me. The tyrant was never an enemy. It was a placeholder. It held center frame until presence returned. And when presence does return, something astonishing happens. Life moves without commentary. Action arises without identity defense. Love appears without negotiation. This is not the loss of self. It is the end of imitation. For the first time, something genuinely new enters the world, not a refined version of collective pattern, but a moment that does not repeat, a movement untouched by memory, a response born in cadence. That is individuality, not constructed, not defended, but revealed through communion. Now, as this journey draws you back into yourself, what you have just encountered is not an idea to adopt, nor a position to defend, nor a truth to believe. It is an exposure. To see that what has long been called the self was often only repetition wearing a name. To notice how the material mind, never meant to rule, quietly took center frame, predicting, narrating, rehearsing, and calling that movement you. This is not an accusation. It is a revelation. To see the tyrant is not to battle it, but to restore it from ruler to tool, from narrator to instrument, from center frame back to its rightful place. That restoration does not happen through effort. It happens through presence. And once seen, the echo can never again be mistaken for the voice. From here, 3 doorways open, not as progressions, not as upgrades, but as parallel invitations. Each reveals another facet of what becomes visible when presence replaces pattern. Doorway 1, the 4 pillars of unified theistic naturalism, a foundational exploration of how truth, observation, perfect action, and movement arise naturally when nothing interferes with presence. This journey reveals the living architecture beneath communion, not as doctrine, but as observable alignment. Reflections. What changes when truth is no longer something to argue for, but something that stands on its own? How does action feel when it arises without inner debate or justification? What remains when movement is no longer driven by fear or desire? Doorway 2, the death of the image, an intimate dismantling of the inner image, the version of me assembled from memory, expectation, and comparison. Here identity dissolves not through loss, but through irrelevance. Reflections. Who are you when there is no image to maintain? What effort disappears when nothing needs to be protected? Can love exist without a mirror to admire or defend? Doorway 3. The day God forgot to create sin, a compassionate rereading of ancient language through modern clarity, revealing that what was once named sin was often the observation of oscillation without the words to describe it. This journey restores innocence to the human story without denying responsibility. Reflections. What dissolves when guilt is no longer required to explain suffering? How does creation look when nothing was ever declared broken? What becomes possible when relationship replaces accusation? There is no correct order. There is no better doorway. There is only resonance. So now, let us walk together as friends, without hurry and without effort, and see what we discover next. I'm Patrick Carradine, and this is Unified Theistic Naturalism.